We're going to take a look at creating a rental contract. And just as a reminder, the rental module is fully integrated, so all of your customers and inventory are the same across point of sale, rental, service, no matter what you do. So those items and customers are already in place. So to start the contract, we'll go to point of sale, rental, and here we have the rental calendar. We'll talk a little bit about what you see on this screen here. Here we have the item selection area, and you can search for things via item ID or description. To appear in this list as an item, we have to have these items available in our inventory. So if you have an item that's not available, it won't show up here. When you select an item, the rental rates can be seen right here in this section. When you select an item as well, you can see when that item is checked out. If the dates are blue, that means that item is either currently checked out or it's reserved for that particular time. If we select an item and we look down here into this bottom area, you can see some different details. For example, you can see the company or the name of the person who's checked that item out right here in this section. You can also get a quick overview of the time that was checked out, when it's due back in, the contract number. And this legend down here will help you keep up with when that stuff is due in or out. As you can see, the contract started on this date, it ends in the future. So today, this item was checked out earlier today. So we can see these arrows indicate that this item was checked out here, and it's going to be checked in later. And you can see here with this legend, this would help you select different items and see what's going on with those particular items. You can look at different months on the calendar. If you have an item that you think, well, that might be reserved later, you can select up here with these arrows. This middle button will take you back to today. Again, if you click through here, you can see different items and when they are checked out or checked in. This is another example of using the legend down here. This symbol here means contract started in the past and ends in the future, and that it's reflected up here in the calendar that today is the 10th. That was checked out on the 7th and is due back on the 14th. Now we're going to start a new contract using the rental wizard and the rental calendar as seen here. So we're going to scroll down here, and I'm going to select the concrete saw. And as you probably guessed, to start a new contract, we simply select new contract. We log in with our credentials, and this is a reminder that you would need to make sure that your employees have access to the rental module in their security settings. So the first step is step 1 is the schedule. So on this screen, we will select the starting on date and time. Are we checking it out now, or is it a reservation? So this is where we need to know if the customer is standing in front of you, they want it now, then the starting on date and time would be right now. If you wanted to push that out into the future to reserve it, you can right click on this, and that would bring up a selection of dates that you can select. Just as a point of interest, in any calendar field in Transact, if you have a date selected and you hit T, that changes it back to today. M changes to month. And again, if you right click, that opens a calendar function. On the screen, we can use F keys to increment the times that we want things checked out, sort of a quicker way to do it. So we're going to press F4 simply one time. And as you can see, that has indicated that we want to check this item out for a week. It shows the returning date based on the starting date. And once you have selected the times that you want to reserve this item or check this item out, we can simply hit the next button. On this screen is step 2, select rental item. So on this area, we can add other rental items if they're going to rent other things besides just this concrete saw. If we wanted to do that, we could go to the rental grid even and select something to add to this rental contract. We're not going to do that with this particular example, but this is the screen where you would want to perform such an action. You can see over here on our right side, now we have an out and in date. We have an estimate for the rent total, and we can even see the sales tax that's already calculated here on the right. So what we're going to do is, that looks good, so we're going to hit next. And now we are on the step 3, the select merchandise screen. And what this screen is you can ring up any merchandise you have in the store. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to that rental item. You can add those things here if they want to go ahead and pay for those things here. In this particular example, the rental item that we selected, that concrete saw, has a rent unit on the item screen, also known as an associated item, of concrete blades. So when we added that concrete saw to the rental contract, it automatically pulled in 3 concrete blades as merchandise that the customer will purchase at the time of the rental. You can also add other items to this merchandise list by the use of the grid, by typing in SKUs, by scanning EPC, any method that you would normally use at the point of sale screen, you can do here. And just to note, this grid on this screen is the point of sale grid and not the rental grid, because these are merchandise items and not rental items. So in this particular example, all we want is the associated concrete blades. So that looks good to us. We're going to simply hit next. And now it's asking for a customer for this rental contract. And the search for the customers is the same as it is in any other part of Transact. And again, all of these customers are integrated. So if you have a customer already in your system, you don't have to create a new one. And we will just search for a customer. So after we found the customer, we'll hit accept. And this screen simply displays all of the information we have about this customer, their address, their phone number, etc. So we'll go ahead and hit next. Now this screen is important because it denotes, are we checking this item out now? Is the customer in front of us ready to go? Or are we reserving this item for a later date? In this particular example, we are going to go ahead and check it out. Now we are met with this screen, this checkout screen, and this would be used, let's say if you had a customer who had multiple rental items and they wanted to check out one now, but maybe not the other one till a later time. But in this example, we just want to select all these things because we want all of this now. So you could go through here and in this checkout field, hit 1 and then hit enter and then 1 and then you'd be done. If all of these items are something that we're going to check out or the customer is going to take now, we can simply hit select all and then save. So here we have the get date time for this rental contract, and I can change that here with this drop down or by right clicking in this area and selecting something different. And that's why this says date and time at left and not just current time, because it is the current time by default, but I can change that to be whatever I would like. So we're going to go ahead and use this time and hit date time at left. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this rental contract. So we'll hit display. This is just basically to say, yes, these items are checked out. Here they are. Here's the concrete saw. Here's the rates. Here's our merchandise and the total down here at the bottom. This number up here at the top right is the rental contract number. So normally this would print and you would hand this to your customer. Once that printing prompt goes away, we can select to invoice this rental ticket now or do it later. A lot of folks will go ahead and invoice this, especially if it's the person renting is somebody they're unfamiliar with. They want to get that money up front. So we're just going to say yes on this prompt. And we're met with our payment options, which is pretty standard in comparison to the regular point of sale process. You have your cash, check, credit card, etc. You could do an account charge as well, but we're going to do cash in this example. So we would enter the amount tendered. Say they gave us $220 and accept. And now this item has been invoiced out. So now we're going to take a look at the checking in process. So once you go to the rental section, you'll have the calendar here again. And instead of starting a new contract, we'll go to find contract. And we're going to search by company. This is the one we want. This was the concrete saw. And so as you can see, this top right indicates whether this is checked out, checked in, or scheduled, or closed, and it's checked out. So we're going to check it in. And just as on the checkout screen, we have the check in where we can select the items individually or hit select all. We're going to actually just put a 1 on the concrete saw. And then that's it, because the check-in, they consumed these blades, so we'll hit save. And since I'm making these videos the same day I created the contract, I'm not going to use the date and time at left because that would not be accurate. We're going to use the contract date and time. Now, you can run into a situation where the customer brings it back earlier and you may have to give them a refund. So we'll look at that on another contract here in one moment. We're going to use the contract date and time just as a standard checking back in. And do we want to invoice this rental ticket? They've already paid for it, but we're going to go ahead and say yes to cover any additional costs and things that may have occurred if they came in late. It's basically the difference between the estimated and the actual. And since there was no difference, then there's no additional payment required, and there's also no refund required. So now if we take a look here, this rental contract is closed, and that is it for this contract. So that one is done, and we'll take a quick look at what happens if you have a contract where the customer brings it back in early, but they've already invoiced, so you can expect a refund. So let's take a quick look at that. So on this particular item, we can see that it was checked out on the 7th, and it's due back on the 14th. So if we find this contract and checked it back in, this customer should be due a refund. And so let's take a look at that as an example. So again, we're going to find the contract, sign in. It was 155. As we can see, this is checked out, and the balance right now is 0 because we invoiced the total at the beginning, but we're going to check it in. It's several days early, so we'll select all, hit save. We're going to use the date and time it left. Do we want to invoice this? Yes, we do. And as we can see, we owe this customer $31.80 because they went ahead and paid for the total up front, but turns out they didn't need it the whole time that they thought they did. So the total ended up being $42.40. So that means we owe the customer $31.80. So we will just give them a cash refund. And then, yes, we would like to mark this rental as closed. So creating a reservation is just a little bit different than going ahead and checking out an item. So let's take a look at that. So we'll do a new contract, sign in, and the start on date. This is where that important little piece is about reserving. So we're going to right click and we're going to reserve this for the 14th, for next Monday. And we're going to do F4 twice for 2 weeks. And we'll say next. Again, here is our rental item. That's what we want. We don't need any merchandise, so we'll simply hit next. And once again, we need to find a customer. We'll hit next. And we're not checking it out because that's not until next week, so we're simply going to hit reserve. And now the difference is, as you can see on this rental form, again, up here at the top right, it does not say checked out or checked in, it says scheduled. So when that customer comes to pick this item up, whether it be on the 14th or maybe they can't come to the next day, we would simply hit the check out button and proceed with that process. So when you hit checkout, it basically proceeds just like the other examples. We have the items, we select all, we hit save. We're going to use the date and time on left because they decided they wanted it now, and it starts that process.